Hello students, welcome to Biology with Miss Rinky. In the previous lecture, we have studied about the cell theory. Now let's understand there are various exceptions to cell theory. Let's have a look at what are the various exceptions to the cell theory. Okay, so the first one, as we have studied in the cell theory, that all organisms are made up of cell. And when we talk about cell, our general thought is that a cell comprises of what? Nucleus and the cytoplasm, right? Now, what about the cells which are prokaryotic cell, okay? For example, now when we talk about bacteria, okay? So our topic for today is going to be exception to cell theory. All right. Now, when it comes to a prokaryotic cell, okay, generally our what we understand a cell as, it has the nucleus, means a well-defined nucleus, that is a nucleus with the nuclear membrane, right? Now the cell theory did not mention about the prokaryotic cell, okay, that is example bacteria. I hope you know why is it called as a prokaryotic cell. Pro means primitive, first, and karyon, okay, means what? Nucleus, right? So the prokaryotic cell which is there, for example, the organisms which are omnipresent, all right, everywhere, that is which is the most primitive organism, that is bacteria, okay, in which what? Nucleus is not well defined. So there was no mention about the prokaryotic cells in which the nucleus is not well defined. Okay, so that is an exception to cell theory. Fine. Now, the next one which is there, okay, which is an exception to the cell theory, okay. These are the organisms which right now, one of the example of it, something which is created the whole of the pandemic, that is the virus, right? The COVID virus. So these viruses which were there are again an exception to the cell theory, okay? They're again the exception to the cell theory. Fine. Because the viruses, we say, we are talking about cell, right? Now, virus by itself has no cell organization. So again, they were an exception to the cell theory. Why? Because they had no cell organization. All right. And because it had no cell organization, as you all know, viruses which are there, all right, they are the ones which are made up of what? Only DNA. We're going to study about that in another chapter. They are made up of only DNA and proteins. Okay, viruses are only made up of what? DNA and proteins. Okay, basically they're made up of what? Nucleoprotein. So they are again an exception to the cell theory. Fine. Apart from that, okay, next what we have, okay, the other organism which actually is again an exception to the cell theory. You will have heard of cells, all right, which are present in the plant, okay, which makes up the phloem tissue, that is sieve tubes. If you know, sieve tubes did not have a nucleus, okay. It is the companion cells which share the nucleus. So sieve tubes are again, okay, they are an exception to the cell theory. Then red blood cells. Red blood cells also, I hope you all are aware, the mature blood cells, okay, not the ones which are the mature red blood cells, which will do the oxygen carrying capacity. Again, they do not have a nucleus. Whenever we say cell, means nucleus and the cytoplasm. So this particular cells which were there were again an exception to the cell theory. Fine. Let's look at the other exception to the cell theory. Now, if I sketch this diagram, all right, fine. In the first diagram, if I ask you how many cells can you see, your answer will be 5 cells, right? Because you can actually clearly see, all right, it's divided, all right, and what you can see is 5 cells, all right. There was a cell membrane and 5 prominent nucleus. Whereas in the other one, what you can see, you cannot really decide how many cells are there, all right. So what exactly is a cell? Okay, we had discussed in the cell theory, it is even what a cell is, a unit mass of protoplasm, wherein we had discussed protoplasm means what? Nucleus and the cytoplasm. Now in the second diagram here, what you can see is that the protoplasm, that is the nucleus, and the cytoplasm which is there, is undivided, right? You cannot really distinguish, right? So this particular again is an exception of cell theory, wherein what is there? That is undivided mass of protoplasm. Okay, undivided mass of what? Protoplasm. Fine. Wherein what is there? It is multinucleated, right? It is multinucleated. Which organisms show that? There are the hyphae. Okay, hyphae is what? It's the which is one of the part, all right, of nothing but fungi. I hope you know fungi, which is there. Okay, has the mycelium, the hyphae, right? So like for example, fungi like mucor, okay, rhizopus, they all show what? This hyphae, okay, which is what? Undivided mass of protoplasm, where you cannot distinguish between the nucleus and the cytoplasm, okay, it's undivided. So again, that's an exception to the cell theory. So what are the various exceptions to the cell theory? One is about the prokaryotic cell, example bacteria, virus which had no cell organization, sieve tubes and red blood cells, and about the undivided mass of protoplasm like fungi, okay, for example mucus and rhizopus, which are there, they were hyphae, which is multinucleated. So all of this which are there, they are what? Exceptions to the cell theory. In the next class, okay, in the next video, I'll start explaining about the most primitive cell, that is the prokaryotic cell. We will study the structure of a prokaryotic cell. I hope you liked the video. If you liked, please share and subscribe to the channel. In the next video, I'll explain you the study of a prokaryotic cell. Till then, study well. This is Rinki Shah signing off. Thank you very much.